The Chicago Bears are back at training camp today after having the day off on Monday. And we're going to talk about the players that have stood out the most so far through the 2-week training camp period. We're also going to talk about the good news the Bears got in training camp today and look at the offensive line. We're going to do all that plus more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but you guys can follow the channel at Bull Central Pod on every Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. Why am I plugging the Bulls podcast on the Bears one? I have no idea. But let's have some fun with it. But we're going to talk about the standout so far through the first 2 full weeks of training camp. With that, you guys know we're going to also have our training recap video tonight and Hard Knocks debuts tonight. So you're going to see us having a post-game show after Hard Knocks as well. You're going to see a lot of Chicago Bears Central today, so make sure you guys stay tuned in. With that said, let's go ahead and get into these standouts so far from the 2 weeks of training camp that you just got to love. And the first one, we're starting right at the top. Javon Dexter. Javon Dexter has really been the talk of training camp so far, and I think it's due to a lot of reasons that most Bears fans will understand. Matt Eberflus has coveted a 3-tech since he came here and became the head coach of the Chicago Bears, and he hasn't got that. The Bears tried in signing Larry Ogunjobi. That deal ends up going away because of Ogunjobi's health, but when it comes down to it, Javon Dexter has been the talk of training camp because of everything that he's brought, the consistent pressure, how that's going to help, and how he's manhandling offensive linemen. Now, some people would say, the more pessimistic ones, well, Haize, the Bears' offensive line hasn't looked that good, so maybe Javon Dexter isn't standing out the way that we think that he is just because he's facing off against the Bears' offensive line. And from a pessimistic view, I kind of understand that. But when you look at everything, the way that he's just handling everything, how he stood out so much, all of that just shows me that Javon Dexter is absolutely ready to hit the ground running to start this NFL season. And I hope he has a really big season. We got a call a couple of episodes ago of somebody asking if he could be comparative to Tommy Harris. Not quite willing to say that yet, but it seems like Javon Dexter is bringing everything that Matt Eberflus wants from a 3-tech in that interior defensive line. And that's really what you want to see, right? And that could go a long way in why the Bears haven't really gone after a veteran edge, and they feel comfortable about the combination of Austin Booker, DeMarcus Walker, and Jacob Martin really being those other edges opposite of Montez Sweat that's going to be in the game when Montez Sweat is sitting down. And so the pressure from Javon Dexter has been a really big one, and it's really good to hear how much he stood out so far for the Chicago Bears. You just, to me, you got to love it, man. I love everything that we've heard about Javon Dexter, and it seems like he just keeps extending himself even more and more and even showing a little bit more each and every practice that goes by. Right along with him, though, we got to talk about another guy that I did not expect to hear as many good things as we've heard about. That's Tyler Scott. Now, over the last week, it hasn't really been, basically since that, it's only been, 2 practices since the game. We haven't heard as much with Tyler Scott, but I think that's still like a lot of Bears fans came into this, understandably so, into, this season, thinking that Tyler Scott was like, if he showed something, whatever, but the chemistry between him and Caleb Williams has been something that almost everybody has talked about. Almost any time that you've heard anything about Caleb Williams, you've heard something about Tyler Scott or Rome Odunze. And overall, I guess that's kind of the thing, is that it's not just to say Caleb Williams, who his decision-making, his command of the pocket, his pocket presence, even with pressure coming on him, has all been standouts as well as training camp. It's really hearing Caleb Williams' chemistry with the whole wide receiver core. It's really been good. Those top 4 wide receivers all have a really good chemistry with Caleb Williams. And some of that, of course, goes to veterans, right? Like DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. You expect those guys to be able to have chemistry with whoever the QB1 is because they're just that damn good, right? DJ Moore, who just got his deal. But then you have the guys like Rome Odunze, who talked about, even through the draft combine, of what it would be like to play with Caleb Williams and how he would love to play with Caleb. And then you have Tyler Scott as well. That's something that you just can't overlook. If your quarterback has chemistry with that whole wide receiver core, you add into that Gerald Everett and Cole Kmet, who are also going to be catching passes from Caleb Williams. That's something that just really stands out. Now, he's done something, Caleb Williams, that is wild in every practice, right? You've heard at least one thing in every practice, even in the practices that the offense necessarily hasn't looked the best at. You've heard something that this Caleb Williams has stood out every single time, where there's understanding of the pocket, reading the defense and what they're trying to do, coming across the middle to passes to Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze. And so that's really good over the course of this, is that between single, double coverage, whatever. He has great and has built really good chemistry with the receivers on this team, and we just got to see how that's going to come. That is why there's so much palpable like desire to see Caleb Williams in an actual football game, even coming into this next preseason game, because everybody wants to see what Caleb Williams is going to bring on the football field. And I, for one, hope that is going to happen, especially when you hear like just how the perfectly timed passes are. Now, it hasn't all been perfect, right? And be clear on that. And between that, the offensive line, things like that, which we'll get into some of the bad standouts, I guess that is that low lights, whatever it is. We'll get into some of that. But like really, ultimately, like Caleb Williams has really also been one to stand out. And that chemistry with Tyler Scott, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen have all been there basically from day one. And so Keenan Allen, who initially there were some like the timing issues, right? There's an issue what they talked about with Keenan Allen. But listen, at the end of the day, like Keenan Allen even said, hey, we're going to get it together. And it seems like they've had. And so, the offense is a thing that everybody's kind of waiting and seeing what this offense is going to look like with all their starters. And while we haven't gotten to see that yet in a preseason game, even a little bit, right? We'll see a little tinge of it probably in this preseason game. A lot of Bears fans are excited about what this offense can be, but also a little concerned. Will it be what we need it to be? Will it be as good, whether it's held back by offensive line or anything else? But Caleb Williams continues to stand out so far in training camp via everything that we've heard so far as well. And then you got to look at some other guys in this. Khalil Herbert's had a really good training camp so far. Austin Booker's had a really solid training camp. So guys like that. Greg Stroman Jr. is another guy as well who, who's shown a lot as well in training camp, and kind of the understanding that he's going to be another one of those players that may not get a whole lot of opportunities. So he's going to have to really make the most out of the opportunities that he is given, and to show that, hey, I can do more here. And so, him like doing that. Colin Johnson's another one as well, right? Colin Johnson, who only played I think it was like 9 snaps in the first game, and had the big game that he had as well. Like, these are guys that everybody's kind of looking and seeing what is their pace or path to make the final roster. And so keep a lookout on that one. And I just checked that Johnson did only play 7 snaps, but he led all wide receivers and everything. And so it's just really good to see the feel good stories that we're hearing right now from the Chicago Bears, and we just want to keep it trucking along, right? And as we go through the rest of the preseason games, also that joint practice with the Cincinnati Bengals that's coming up sooner rather than later. These are all things that are the excitement around Chicago for the first time seems like it's warranted. The excitement is warranted, but we got to see how this team is going to really play together. And a big part of that as well, when it comes down to how this team is going to play together, it really comes down to how well that offensive line is able to stand up. Now, we got good news today, right, as far as getting a lot of the starting offensive line back healthy. Nate Davis, Tevin Jenkins, Darnell Wright, all back healthy for practice at the start of today. That's really good. Let's hope that we don't get anybody sitting down. Again, we'll have updates on how training camp with today at some point. But overall, like the offensive line is something that it's concerning for a lot of Bears fans. And while, there was that thing, and I always kind of said it as, hey, there may just be being proactive to make sure these guys are going to be healthy by week 1. And that's kind of the most important thing. So if they're sitting out some practices, maybe that's because the Bears are just fine with that, because they feel very confident in what this offensive line is going to be able to bring once the regular season starts. So hearing that these guys are back healthy, they're in the shell today. So, look at that for what you will. But it is what it is. Like there has been a little bit of a rough patch with the practices lately, with how much injuries we've had up and down that offensive line, and it really still comes down to that evaluation period, right? We're still in the midst of an evaluation period right now for the Chicago Bears and how good this offensive line is going to be. I talked about yesterday still the potential of the Bears going out and getting a guy like Connor Williams while he's still out on the market. But we'll see, right? So right now, it's been pointed out, Darnell Wright, Nate Davis, and Tevin Jenkins were taking place of the walkthrough throughout. They were out there, so that's a really good thing. But this offensive line is still a sign of concern. And, of course, we wish that we're not really still talking about that offensive line being a sign of concern, but it is. And so when you look at it, you have to be a little bit worried. Like I said, even if you think the talent's there, right? Which some people doubt the talent. Some people look at it and say, no, if they're healthy, the talent's there. But the fact is that we're still talking about an offensive line that just has not been able to stay healthy, even if you do feel confident in that talent there. And that brings you back to what are the Bears going to do with that offensive line. And right now, we know that we came in the Bears hope that Ryan Bates, Coleman Shelton, that would have been our center rotation, right? Whether you had Bates or you had Shelton starting, you had a solid backup behind those guys. But if the offensive line is not going to be healthy, if you got Nate Davis out or whatever else, that means that somebody's going to have to move positions. Bates, most people expected to kind of be that first go at the starting center position. If Nate Davis is not healthy, Ryan Bates is going to move over to that right guard, which now then moves Coleman Shelton into the starting center, which is fine because he is competing for that starter center role. But then you got to ask yourself, how confident are you then at that point at the depth behind the center position? And so that's where it leads to the Bears maybe wanting to look at something where there's more rotational help, or it is going out and getting somebody the ilk of a Connor Williams to come in here and kind of shore up that center position. That's what the Bears have to ask themselves. And I'm sure they're looking at it. They're talking about it. They're communicating with the O-line coach, the offensive coordinator, head coach, and Ryan Poles are all in communication about what exactly do they feel they need to do, and do they feel that they have done enough, right, so far in having that support. And the last thing that you want, right, and Ryan Poles said this before, you can't fix everything in one offseason, and that's not going to happen, right? But it is evident that this offensive line, if it's not healthy and fully ready to go, could be a big problem in the development of Caleb Williams. And that's what this should all ultimately be about, right? Like I said it before, we're no longer a rebuilding team, but we are a team that's now, it's trying to get wins. Wins are the ultimate goal here for the Chicago Bears team. While you are still developing players, you're just not rebuilding anymore, right? And so now that you have those things in place, the last thing you want is that to be hampered by an offensive line that just can't stay healthy. And so we've really surrounded Caleb Williams at every position with great talent. The tight ends, great talent. Wide receiver room, great talent there. The running back room, there's some questions people have about the running back room. Not every Bears fan is sold on DeAndre Swift, and a lot of Bears fans still think Khalil Herbert. Some Bears fans think that Roschon Johnson should be that running back too to DeAndre Swift. Some Bears fans don't think that Roschon is good. I still see those comments all the time, right? And I think that still you've done a good enough job, right? The defense, we know that the intensity and the level that we expect this Chicago Bears defense to play at this season. But that offensive line is still a huge question mark. And while I'm not as worried about Caleb Williams getting beat up like Justin Fields did in his first few years, I would be lying if I did not say that it is a bit of a concern, right? There is a bit of concern. I wish that I could say that we had that offensive line that was just solid. Now, to his credit, Ryan Poles went out and got depth pieces. He got Coleman Shelton, Ryan Bates, who we talked about. He went out and got Matt Pryor. He went out and drafted Kieran Amagaje, right? He went out and got these guys and added to Larry Borum, the J. Tyree Carters, to add more depth overall at that offensive line. So he tried to address it the best he can, but it's not just about depth. The depth moves really good, but when you have to rely on your depth pieces to be your starters so frequently and often as the Chicago Bears have, that's where you start running into trouble. Some players are depth pieces for a reason, and so you got to look at that also. And I do expect this upcoming offseason, right, which we're already looking towards, that is kind of crazy right now considering the regular season hasn't started yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's a trenches focused offseason coming up in the 2024-25 offseason for the Chicago Bears. But it's still, this season is this season, right? And you can't overlook the fact that there is concerns about this O-line this season. I feel confident just about in almost every other aspect of the Chicago Bears team. Not saying it's going to be perfect. Not saying they're not going to have their shortcomings. Not saying they're not going to have their days where, the Bears defensive line just can't get to the quarterback and it drives me crazy. Those things are going to happen, right? But it's the fact that I still don't feel confident in just saying, hey, our offensive line is set, right? And you could say that in almost every other position group. The secondary, set. The linebackers, set. The defensive line, for the most part, set. We got the opposite edge that we're worried about, but maybe with Javon Dexter, we're not too worried about that. Wide receivers, set. Tight end, set. Running back, set, for the most part. The offensive line is the biggest question mark right now for the Bears. And if I know Ryan Poles, he's still looking to see if he can. Now, he's not going to put himself in a bad situation asset-wise to go out there if he feels confident that he can address it in the offseason through the draft, get some young pieces. But I would not be surprised if Ryan Poles is kind of surveying the landscape to see, is there anything that I can do or that I need to do to continue to shore up this offensive line? And if there is, Cool. How do we go about getting it? What do we have to give up to get it? How can we facilitate that? Right. Those are things that right now we have an offensive. A GM that I feel really confident in his ability to at least survey that and be looking at these things. Where I haven't always felt that confident about it when it came to the Chicago Bears, but that does not necessarily mean that it's going to go the way that we want it to go this season, and that we're going to have the level of play that we want to see up front this season either. So, we'll see what happens with that. But, overall, no pads in practice today. So there shouldn't be really a huge risk of anybody getting hurt. Let's see what happens to that. The Bears starting offensive line in training camp today was Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Coleman Shelton, Nate Davis, and Darnell Wright. That's what it was. So, hey, listen, everybody's out there. Let's hope that is a sign of things going in the right direction. Let's hope that is a sign that all my talk about the concerns over this offensive line weren't needed, that they were just kind of being being in the precautionary area with this team. Let's hope all those things are absolutely true, because I hope that that's going to be the case. But when it comes down to it, we're Bears fans, and we've seen enough with this franchise where it raises some concerns, and we'll see. Right? We'll see what happens. But we're 2 days away from some more Chicago Bears football. Or no, not more. I think we play Saturday this week, not Thursday. So we're a few days away from more Chicago Bears football. Can't wait to break that down. It's going to be an exciting time period for Bears fans, and I think we got a lot of things coming down the pipeline. But with that said, we got a lot of voicemails, which is expected after games and things like that. We're going to play one of those voicemails now. This one's from Milton.
Hey, Chicago Bears Central. This is Milton, the Real Dark Knight, calling in from Virginia Beach, Virginia. What it do? Haize, Bobby, C-Dub, Big Kev, Steve-O. What it do, gentlemen? Anyway, just wanted to comment on this Hall of Fame game. It was pretty decent for the most part, besides it raining and them canceling the remainder of the game. I'm glad that the Bears got a dub in, and I'm especially glad that Ryan Haize and Ian Cunningham brought in Shane Waldron to be calling these plays. Everything looks so much better. Play calling, there's no dinking dunks and screen passes and all this other stuff. I'm just so glad, man. It just looked decent for the most part. The thing I got is about this offensive line. It just seems like every time if the Bears get the ball first or whatever, it's just like they just real slow to try to be aggressive and score points on that first series or second series or whatever the case is. I don't like that. We really got to clean that up. And the O-line, the only thing that I'm worried about is the O-line. I just don't want them to be having Caleb either running for his life or on his back most of the time, because we don't want another Justin Fields. And as much as they did, that young man, he was running for his life most of the time, getting sacked, and that's why, the Bears were leading in rushing this because of our quarterback. Our quarterback should be throwing the ball down the field, throwing touchdowns and doing all that. He shouldn't be, okay, my O-line's not going to protect me. Now I got to go out here and run like the Lone Ranger and all this other stuff. But no, that's the thing that concerns me. And also, I just wanted to let y'all know, like the night of the Hall of Fame game, I was up there watching y'all, the live calling and everything. I just happened to just see what other Chicago media was covering it. I happened to go on Bears Now by Chat Sports with Harrison Graham. I see Nate Davis over in the chat. So someone had mentioned something about someone can protect better than Nate Davis or something like that. And then Nate Davis happened to be up in there. See, this just even makes my point about that dude. I know we can't cut him because he's in a guaranteed contract, man, but that just irks me. It's like, okay, you hurt. You can't bring it behind the work, but you can be chatting on some other Bears media and all this other stuff. I don't like that. That, to me, that smells foul. I just want to let y'all know that. If I'm lying, I'm flying. I just want to let y'all know if y'all want to check it out on Bears Now by Chat Sports is over there, because I remember seeing them on there. But anyway, let me get on out here, deliver this mail out in the seat and everything. Hey, Bobby, C-Dub, Big Kev, and Steve-O, what it do? Y'all keep doing what you're doing. Chicago up, Bear down. This is Milton, the Real Dark Knight from Virginia Beach, calling again. I'm out. One.
All right, so listen, I get what you're saying in that, and I'll say this. Let's wait and see what the offense actually looks like with having more of the starters out there, right? I get what you're saying and not being aggressive and things like that, and I can't blame you for feeling that way. But I'll say this, is that I don't think last preseason game is really good. I think they were going to be more aggressive coming out of that halftime. I also think when you don't have your starters in there, like, it's it's a Hall of Fame game. And as much as I hate to say it, and I know some people are going to say, well, it's a game. You compete every single day. And I would love to say that. The Bears, like, it's not really nothing to go after and be super aggressive in trying to, score or whatever else. Like, it's trying to go through. You're seeing kind of the process as that I like to see it. And so we'll see what happens, man. At the end of the day, I think that listen, I don't want Caleb Williams running for his life. I don't want this offensive line to put Caleb Williams in the situation that Justin Fields was in. I don't want that. And I hope that if it does look like that's the direction it's going to go, that Ryan Poles is a little bit more aggressive during the season to figure out what he can do. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a solution found in this season, but hopefully I do feel like that's going to be the case. Like we're gonna get it together. Like the Bears truly feel like they have their quarterback. And while Bears fans are still waiting and seeing, the football world still waiting and seeing if the Bears are going to develop him and things like that, and if he's going to stand up and be the quarterback that a lot of people think he can be, that generational label that he got thrown at so often. But at the end of the day, like, I'm just going to wait right now. I'm going to wait until we see a little bit more of this offense with the starters out there before I worry about it too much. And I'll say this, like, it didn't seem like we were allowing a lot of pressure. Now, we were up against the second and third string in that preseason game, but let's wait and see. And I really hope that all the pressure and things that we're hearing that this offensive line has been allowing in training camp either comes down to injuries. It also comes down to our defensive line is just going to be that damn good. Let's hope that that's the case. And we'll see what happens. Like, yes, I think this offense is going to be a lot more aggressive, but there are still some signs for concern. And we probably won't have a full answer for this concern until we're actually in the regular season. So let's hope that. But great voicemail there, Milton. Thank you for leaving that, man. Make sure you guys are following the show at Shy Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down, y'all. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.